Hey folks, the Dear VA Guy today, Dale Davidson. Thank you for joining us today. So, hey, did you know that the VA has a duty to assist you in your disability claim? Who knew, okay? Is it optional? No. Is it elective? No. Is it discretionary? Nope. So if it isn't optional, and it's not elective, and it's not discretionary, it must be mandatory, right? So that's what we call in the law statutory. It's the law. And so the law we're talking about is the Veterans Claim Assistance Act of 2000, okay? VCAA. So that's the law we're talking about, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the VA talks about it when you're communicating with them. They'll say, well, we have a duty to assist you in your claim. So, but in the immortal words of Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, I don't think it means what you think it means. The VA's word or version of help is a whole lot different from our version of help. In 2000, Congress required that the VA assist you by both notifying you of information necessary to prove your claim and by helping you obtain the evidence and information necessary to prove your claim. Now, this duty to notify includes a duty to notify you of any information. Well, what information is that? It's in terms of necessary. What information is necessary to complete your claim? Information or medical evidence, maybe, lay evidence. What's necessary to substantiate your claim? And what information must you provide? And what information will the VA attempt to obtain? So, let's just give you an example. I call up the VA or I write to VA and say, look, I need my medical records. And so then you get a notice from the VA saying, look, we searched for your medical records in Alaska and we couldn't find it. Well, dadgum right, I never was in Alaska. I was never stationed in Alaska. Now sometimes the VA does do a good job. There's good people and not so good people. But a lot of times they're just doing the bare minimum to help you. My goal is I want them to do everything to help you. I want them to go out of their way to help you. I don't know how I can convince them to do that other than doing this video. So again, the VA's got to make reasonable efforts to assist you in obtaining evidence necessary to substantiate your claim. They also have to make reasonable efforts to obtain relevant records. Don't know what relevant is, okay? Including any kind of private medical records or private records that you identify and authorize the VA to obtain. So now the burden's on you to identify relevant records to the VA so that they can go out and get them. So it's important that you try and identify everything. And we're going to talk about that in more detail. The VA's duty to obtain your service treatment records and other military records and of other relevant VA treatment records, they've got to go to whatever federal agency or federal government department there is and try to obtain those records. So what about medical examinations, Dale? Do they have a duty to provide a medical exam or obtain a medical opinion when one is necessary? Yes. Okay, but there's some requirements there. So the duty to provide a medical examination or obtain a medical opinion when one is necessary to obtain or to decide your claim is extremely important. Especially in this, and we've talked about it in previous videos, you've got to have the medical evidence to show you have that disability. Okay, and that medical evidence has got to have some kind of nexus or some kind of connection with your service. Okay, nexus is very, very important still. So you, in order to get or obtain a medical appointment or medical evaluation, or have the VA schedule one for you, you got to show 4 things. Okay, number 1, you got to have the competent evidence of a current disability. Okay, that's your disability. What are you suffering from? Are you suffering from tinnitus, ear ringing, or you have lower back problems from jumping out of perfectly good airplanes? You've got prostate cancer because you were exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam. What is your current disability? So then you've got to have evidence that your injury or disease occurred during service. Well, certainly if you were jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, you've got your jump records. Okay. Certainly if you were on the aircraft carrier or artillery, you've got evidence of that. And certainly if you were in Vietnam or Thailand and you were exposed to Agent Orange, you've got the presumptives. Okay. So you've got to show that there's a connection there. And again, you've got to show some kind of indication that your disability is associated with your service or with your service-connected disability. And then the 4th is that there's insufficient evidence in the record. So the VA doesn't have sufficient competent medical evidence in their file for them to decide your claim. So in those 4 instances, they will, all 4 of them have to be present, by the way, they'll order a medical exam. So despite the Veterans Claim Assistance Act, the VCAA, and I'm going to shorten it to VCAA because it's too wordy, okay? So the VA really hasn't gotten any better to satisfy their duties over the last 2+ decades, okay? Now, even if they were to improve at gathering the necessary evidence, you must be proactive in obtaining evidence to support your claim. You must be proactive. Always, always be proactive. They're not going to do you any favors, okay? They send you information, say, look, you need to get this information to us. Don't sit on it. Get it done. Being proactive increases your probability that your claim is going to be granted, especially when it comes to medical evidence. In a disability claim, the most important part of the VA duty to assist you involves scheduling you for a medical examination, if those 4 things are present, because they need to obtain a medical diagnosis of your claimed disability or some kind of medical opinion. Well, they normally get their doctors to do that. But why rely, if you're being proactive, why rely on the VA's physicians for that? What if the VA's physicians say, well, old Dale, he's got tinnitus or he's got whatever, but it doesn't rise to the level that he is to be rated for anything. You know, you need to have your own evidence. You need to have your own medical opinion, your own diagnosis showing the severity of your disability, and you need to put that in the hands of the VA. Don't rely on VA doctors. Okay? Don't rely on VA doctors. Be proactive. If you're proactive and you obtain your own medical opinion or diagnosis from your own doctor, and they're linking that to your service, okay, and you submit that with your claim or shortly after it's filed, that's going to substantially increase the chances of your success. Now, a lot of times the VA is still going to want their own doctors, but you've got your opinion, your doctor's opinion and diagnosis in the file. Okay, so the VCAA requires that the VA, upon receipt of all of this evidence, to notify you of any information or medical evidence, lay evidence, whatever it may be, that they need to substantiate your claim. So they're supposed to explain to you what evidence you must obtain and what evidence the VA will attempt to obtain on your behalf. Now, if you think this notice is going to be all-encompassing and tell you, well, you got to have this specific document, that specific document, look, I'm going to bust your bubble, because it doesn't even come close to that. In fact, those notices are very generic. And you only got 1 year from the notice to provide all this information. Again, don't rely solely on the VA before acting proactively to support your claim. Submit all favorable evidence, okay, that supports your claim. Let's give an example. Say you're seeking an increased rating for PTSD, and so you submit documents, evidence that you've got PTSD. What other evidence can you submit? Well, let's say that because of your PTSD that you have trouble holding down employment. Well, if you can't hold down employment, get records, get letters from people, from previous employers saying that, hey, I just couldn't handle his mood swings, so I had to get rid of whatever it is. Get some documentation favorable to your diagnosis in the VA's file so that they can make a good, sound decision. Be proactive. Be proactive. Don't wait on it. Don't sit on that notice until you got 10 days to respond. Respond immediately. Again, submit evidence that discusses your inability to retain employment. Discuss whatever your disability is. Get lay statements, get whatever you've got to get, letters from your preacher, whatever it is, just go get it and put it in the hands of the VA. Now, I previously taped a video on disability benefits questionnaires, or DBQs, and I'm a big proponent of those, okay? DBQs are standard examination forms created for use for the VA to evaluate your disability. They're basically a roadmap for the people who are get your application, and it's basically a check the box thing. Now, again, I'm a big proponent of these, and so I've asked my clients to submit DBQs to the VA or to their private doctors so that I can submit those with their disability claims. And it really helps if we can get them. So again, these were developed by the VA to streamline the collection of medical evidence, okay, for the purposes of processing your claim. Now, according to the VA, they now regularly use DBQs. Now, I can tell you that that is a lie. Imagine that, the VA's lying. I have had, in the last several weeks, several clients call me, say, Dale, look, you sent us these DBQs, we took them to our VA doctor, and the VA doctors refused. Okay, take them to your private doctors. Well, I don't have a private doctors. Okay, so we're dealing with the VA doctors. Well, what did the VA doctors tell you? It says, we don't fill those out because those are against our interest. I was kind of shocked. I said, what interest? I thought we were all on the same side, and that you're trying to help these veterans get diagnosed for their disability, and you're not going to even fill out a form that the VA requires and that Congress mandated because it's against your interest. What interest do you have, doctor? Oh, that's right, big government. So we're going to continue to push them, but we do have some pushback from the VA and private doctors. And say, in all fairness though, these are really kind of check the box types forms. And so I understand that doctors, they want to use whatever their notes are, or their clinical note, whatever medical records they've got. They're not interested in trying, and maybe your diagnosis doesn't fit into a check box. Okay. But at the same time, don't sit there and tell a veteran that I'm not going to do that because that's against our interest, meaning the VA's interest, to fill out a DBQ that is required by Congress. Anyway, so in conclusion, look, despite what the VA says, and they'll help you to a certain degree, but they're not going to help you to the extent that you need. I'm telling you, be proactive. Bug the stew out of them. Whatever you got to do, be proactive. Get all your documentation together. Submit all the documentation. Get lay statements, whatever you got to get, and be proactive. And don't sit on those notices that they send you saying, hey, we need additional information. Okay, they're not going to tell you exactly what kind of information, but it'll be in a kind of a generic form. All right, folks, thank you for watching today. The Dear VA Guy really appreciates it. Hey, look, this video on DBQs I did about 2 or 3 months ago. Very, very helpful, even though the VA may not want to fill them out for us. So anyway, until next time, be blessed.